Well, good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our Saturday conversation on this Saturday morning. And I'm really delighted to have Beverly Judd with us this morning. Beverly's been part of the congregation, especially at Woodgreen Church, for a long time, and she's involved in the church in lots of different ways. I thought it'd be really interesting just to have a conversation, find out a little bit more about her faith journey, and talk about one or two things that are of particular interest to her. So, very warm welcome to you, Beverly. I don't really know where you came from to come to Woodgreen. Where did you start out in life?
Well, I was born in Luton, but spent the first couple of my years there when my mother and father decided that they wanted to bring their family up in Bournemouth. So the sort of formative years of my life were, I was brought up in Bournemouth, and we went to various churches there. My father always went to church on a Sunday, and he used to take my sister and I to church with him. But we went to several different churches. He obviously was looking, for something that suited him. Mm. And we did go to 2 different Church of England churches. We also went to, now thinking about it, because I was really quite young, I think it was a Scientologist church or something at Parkstone, which I think is probably quite near to where Mike is.
Yes, it's probably the Christian Science Church rather than Scientologists.
Yes,
yeah, because
we
they have
there for a while.
Yes, it's just down the bottom of the road from where
I had a
Mike
feeling
lived.
when Mike said where he was. Yes, but we ended up at the Methodists.
Yeah,
where we were all very happy. But then my father died when I was about 10.
Oh, yeah.
And we moved back up to Dunstable, which is right next to Luton, where my grandfather was. And my mother moved my sister and I back up to Dunstable. And we lived there for quite a while. And then my sister was married and had 2 children. And she and her husband said to Mum and I, we're going to move back down to Bournemouth. Again, she wanted to bring her children up down in Bournemouth. And what are you going to do? And I said to Mum, well, we're going to spend all our time backwards and forwardsing to see the children and Christine and Gordon. I said, we might as well move. So we moved then to Christchurch.
Right.
So I did for quite a while go to Christchurch Priory, because that was the nearest church to us there. And then having moved here.
When was that? When did you move here?
1982.
Okay.
So we were married at Bremer, Richard and I. And when we got the children, there was no, having been brought up going to Sunday school in all these various churches for all this period of time, there wasn't a Sunday school at Bremer, but there was one at Woodgreen. So I started taking the children to Sunday school. And of course, Woodgreen Church is a much, we're a non-car family. Woodgreen Church is much easier to get to than Bremer Church. Yeah, so 10 minutes to Woodgreen, 25 minutes up to Bremer.
You live in Bremer Parish, don't you? You live in Bremer Parish, technically, but actually Woodgreen's much closer.
It is, yes. I am just over the border, because the border for Woodgreen is actually halfway across that brick bridge, which is just across the road. Taking the children to St. Boniface regularly to Sunday school, and then they started having a family service. Tim Dakin said, I think you need a family service here. And of course, the Sunday school was very much involved in that. Yeah. So at one time we were trying to do both. I would go to both Bremer and to Woodgreen, but I found that Woodgreen suited me much better
Mm.
in the form of service. I did find them far too formal, especially for the children. You know, if I took the children to Bremer, I felt sort of that there was nothing for them there.
Mm.
So we gravitated towards Woodgreen more and more.
Yeah.
And
then
have been there ever since.
Yeah. And you've been involved in quite a lot of different things within the church there.
Yes.
The Friday morning coffee morning, which was, you know, until lockdown, the last lockdown. That's been a big thing there, hasn't it? Getting people together within Woodgreen and the wider community.
Yes. So, oh gosh, when did that start? Well over 10 years. I bet it's more like 15 years.
I think so.
It might be more than that. That we started. As with most of the innovative things in St Boniface and that Hale and Woodgreen parish, it was Nikki's idea. She thought it was a good idea to have a coffee morning, and we chose to have it on a Friday because there was a parent and toddler group next door, and we were trying to encourage more young families to come into church, and she thought it would be a good idea that when they'd finished the toddler group, they finished at 11:30. She thought they'd come in for a cup of coffee and, you know, and have something there for them in church before they went off home with the children. Unfortunately, that never worked. And when we sort of found out, it was because the children were tired. They'd been playing for a couple of hours and they needed to go home for their lunch, and they needed their sleep after lunch, etc., etc. Very occasionally we would get one or two come in, but on the whole we didn't see them. But we found it was, you know, a magnet for all the older people in. So we got a lot of the people from Hall House and a lot of, and even people were travelling down from Hale to come to this coffee morning. We had quite a few and God's Hill we got people from as well. Some of the people I'm talking about have now died, but you know, there's at least one lady who from Hall House who still comes when we're there. So yes, and it was Patricia and Ros Waite who used to run the Fairtrade stall down at St Mary's, a similar role to what Trudy has been doing, and now Rhoda and Di have taken over. Patricia was the one who was really keen on fair trade and had said we need to be a fair trade church, which we already were. And she spoke to Ros and said, oh, we're going to have a coffee morning, and it would be good to have the fair trade stall there. So the two sort of are interlinked, and that has always what has happened. You know, the coffee morning, a bit like the Woodgreen shop with the grocery shop supporting the post office, the coffee morning and the fair trade stall have been very much in tandem.
Yeah, and it's a lovely group of people. All sorts of things come out. Think about all the knitting, the knitting squares and things that have happened, and the collecting for George. Most of that's come from the coffee morning. A little Palestinian boy whom we support. That group has done all sorts of. We knitted. What were those little teddy bears called?
Something Bobby, because it's to do with the police.
Teddy Bobby.
So we had. Because every now and again they have a police support officer go into the shop, community sort of meeting in the shop, and one of them popped in one day with this knitting pattern and said, oh, you know, we want to give these to every time we go to a case and there's a child involved, but they may not be involved in the case, but they'll go into a home. And it's, you know, quite frightening for any child to see them all in their uniform and the radio and everything. And they said, if we've got one of these, we can give to the children when we go in, or if for some reason they have to come into the police car to be taken to, you know, it's a gift and to reassure the children. So particularly Pat Newman, who lives up at Hale. She's a great knitter.
Yes, she is.
And she did loads of them. But I'm sure Dot and her mum did some.
Yes, and the knitted squares, the blankets for Chinchisi as well.
Yes.
That. And lovely things happen. Fish and chip lunches, and Christian Aid. There's a soup and pud, I think it is, isn't it?
Yes,
Christmas one.
We've done an awful lot of charity support through the
Yeah.
coffee morning. You know, all sorts of different charities. Like a couple of years ago, we had someone from the Sailors Society come, and we've had people come, and sometimes we have talks. You know, we've had a lady who particularly talked to us about Zaytoon stuff, that she goes out to Palestine, and she told us of the plight of the Palestinian farmers out there. We've had some really interesting people come in to talk to us.
We had the coffee lady, didn't we?
Yeah, she was the one from the Sailors Society.
Oh, she Sailors Coffee, yes.
Yeah.
The Zaytoon dates and olive oil make great Christmas presents as well. They're both really good products, aren't they, from them?
Yes.
But then also that became a time for prayer as well, didn't it, on a Friday morning?
Yes.
Too. So
Nikki used to, you know, we'd all be trying to set up the coffee morning, and she'd say, "It's 10:15. It's 10:15. We need to pray now. We need to pray now." And we would all gather round the prayer pit and have sometimes sometimes we would follow a service through, but quite often it would just be an informal prayer time with all sorts of thoughts and you know, whatever was on people's minds, really. So it was good that we were able to do that every month.
And we're just thinking about exploring ways that could be expanded to be online as well, and can't they? Perhaps more across the parish, that there might be some sort of online prayer group while we can't meet together in person, and perhaps that might draw other people into this circle of prayer, which is there already.
It would be lovely to, because at the moment we don't know when we'll be able to get back into church, or to sit that closely together to have a prayer time. It would be lovely, I think, to set up an online prayer meeting, to not to take the place of the ones that are already on at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday and a Monday and Wednesday, but a less formal one that people can join and you know, add their own prayers, or just sit quietly and listen to the prayers that are being said. And they can either be already written prayers, you know, I've got a favorite prayer, can we say this prayer? Or they can be anything that's on your heart that you just want to bring to God.
I think it's a really good idea. I mean, we've not got to find, if we can't get together in person at the moment to pray, finding new ways of being able to do it, and online is one of the ways that we can. So it's a really good idea. Can you say a little bit about what you know, why you think prayer is important?
Well, I suppose because I find many of them just touch me so much. You know, I find they speak to me just as passages in the Bible do, or just as you have favorite hymns and they say something to you. I find that with prayer. Sometimes, I mean, normally a written one, but even I always, every day I have a quiet time of prayer, and I have my well-worn book that's full of other prayers as well. So this is my favorite book that I use every single day for my quiet time in the morning.
Wonderful.
William Barclay. So I picked this up secondhand in a secondhand bookshop when we were on holiday in Lyme Regis. I hope Nikki's found that shop. And thought, oh, this looks interesting. And I just love his prayers. So I just go through them every month. And they are the start of my prayer session. So they also have readings in them. So I use that, and then I go off on to my own prayers, which I have an enormous list of now because of since the lockdown. I've had such a lot. I've had to revise my list and put it into sections now.
And you're praying for people, for situations, for places, all those in a sort of regular patterned way.
Yes.
You pray for them.
Yes. And obviously, sometimes it might be something that's on the news, but other times it's obviously, people within the parish, or all sorts of different categories I've got now, because I can't get them all in on one day. I find. So I have to categorize them all. Yes, but yes, I love prayers. I don't know why, but they mean a lot to me.
And what do you think is happening when you're praying? Why is it so important to pray together and with other people?
Well, obviously, when like all things, when you're with other people, you learn from them, and something they say will inspire you, and also it's that communion thing that is from the Bible, that if two or three are gathered together, I am there also. So it's a sort of fellowship thing when it's a group, but it's just as important for you to spend time quietly with God every day, isn't it? I think. And that's a good way to start your day. And I don't find that if I haven't started my day like that, the day's not right.
Praying is very important. It's a part of our life, isn't it? It's a way of spending time with God, and reflecting with other people on what's happening in the world, what's happening in their lives. I feel prayer is lifting. I mean, God knows all the concerns. He knows what we're praying for already. We're not telling him the news, but we are somehow lifting people into his care when we pray for.
Yes. So yes. So I sort of say, can you have your hand on this situation? Would you bless them? Can you help them to cope? In the end, whatever their situation is, you want them to be able to cope with it, don't you?
Yeah. You want healing to any situation, whatever that healing may be, and that's in God's hands, what the healing is. Yeah. Well, that's been really interesting, and you're such an important part of the life of St Boniface. You keep on reminding people about prayer, which is really good, and you also remind people about the Fairtrade part of our life as well, and you keep that supported, as well as being involved in lots of other ways. So it's been lovely having a conversation this morning. And talking of prayer, I think you've got a prayer for us, haven't you, to finish?
Well, I've got a prayer and a reflection. That isn't actually, it's from the 4th of November. So I am using this book that I picked up in church a couple of years ago, which I was so inspired by. I mean, I have got asterisks and stars and underlines all the way through this book. So last year when we got to, so it's from 100 Days. I don't know if anyone knows that it's about the end of the First World War, and in 1918, George the King, I've forgotten which one he was, decided that the nation should start praying, and they started praying on the 4th of August 1918, and 100 days later, the war ended. And this is a prayer and reflections for 2018, but they are so good that I last year and this year I've got them out and gone through them again. And this is one that I read last week that just is absolutely amazing, and it's so it was for the 4th of November a couple of years ago, and it's titled "It's Never Too Late to Make Peace," and the Bible quote is, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." And the person who's written, it's always someone from a different Christian organization who's written the piece and the prayer. Gavin Calver is Director of Mission at Evangelical Alliance, the chair of Spring Harvest, and a member of the Hope Leadership Team, although he was a couple of years ago. He may not be now. Anyway, a frail elderly Black woman sits in a South African courtroom. Close by is a white policeman who's been found guilty of murdering her son and husband. He's come to her home and shot her son dead before returning to take her husband too. Eventually, he came back for her. She was taken to where her husband lay on a pile of wood. The last words from him, as petrol was poured over his body and he was set aflame, were, "Father, forgive them." Now the woman's here listening to the man's confession. She's asked, "What do you want? How should justice be done to this man who destroyed your family?" "I want 3 things," she says. "Firstly, to collect my husband's ashes and give them a decent burial." She continues, "Secondly, I now have no family, so I want him to become my son, to come and visit me at home so I can pour out on him whatever love I still have remaining in me. Finally," she says, "I'd ask someone to come to me and lead me across the courtroom so I can take him in my arms and let him know that he is truly forgiven." The man faints. Those in the courtroom, many victims of oppression and injustice, begin singing "Amazing Grace." How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Lord, please help us to be people of peace. Where we need to forgive, give us strength to do so. Where we need to make things right, give us grace to make this possible. Help us to be peacemakers and give us all we need to do so. Amen.
Amen. That's wonderful. Thank you, Beverly. And thank you for agreeing to join us on this Saturday morning. And I hope everybody, you and everybody, have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gary. Bye-bye.